o'clock. And my goodness, there is a big treat for you in store. We have been going through, as a society, as a community in our world, such a time of struggle emotionally. And today, the lead pastor of the Embassy Church, Doug Snyder, is here. And he always has a word of encouragement and some good information that'll really help you in your day-to-day life and moving forward without having to wait for the end of this pandemic. So you can really learn how to change your vision and what you look at right now, right in the middle of it. In fact, you can use this as an opportunity. Doug, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be with you, Denise, and you sound so chipper. I think that we all should listen to you.
Oh, I guarantee you, they're going to want to hear what you have to say. So, I want to talk about, we're talking about, I guess people would call it happiness. And one of the things I had said on my interview at Global News Morning earlier this week is that happiness, we want to make sure that we understand that happiness is just an emotion, and we don't have to be happy all of the time. And just because we're not feeling happy, it doesn't mean something's wrong. So happiness comes and goes, and there's a time to be happy, a time to be sad, a time to grieve. So what are your thoughts on happiness and that we don't have to be happy all of the time?
It's a great point that you're bringing out, because happiness is based on happening. And so if we're always wanting to be happy, we're going to be going to a lot of sports events. We're going to be doing a lot of suppers out, and eventually we won't be able to afford it or keep it up. And the other thing is that it always takes a higher level of happenings to give us that buzz, that feeling. And so the reality is it's better to see a intermittent happiness, and to be able to see that life has a stability where you might not be happy all the time, but inside there's a steady calm that you have about yourself.
I love that, because you're right. There is a peace that you can have. So happiness to me sometimes feel more of you're elated, and then sad is you're depressed, and it kind of goes up and down. And wherever you are, you can have that peace that goes on. So, Doug, how would you suggest people can change their mindset or their viewpoint so that they can feel that peace even in the middle of what we're going through right now?
One of the things that I would strongly suggest and be aware of is to understand that we are not just emotional creatures. And if I were to use myself as an example, I've tried to do exercise that will just get rid of a little bit of that extra fat around my midsection. Well, no one's been able to do that. They always tell me that I have to do all of these other exercises too. And I say, no, I just want this piece right here. And sometimes we're like that with our emotions. We say, you don't have to talk about anything else. Just talk about my emotions. Well, we're not just emotional people. We're actually a whole. We're emotional, we're mental, we're able to think things through, we're able to come up with decisions, we're relational, we are able to think about finances. And so when you talk about emotions, I could almost just put that off to the side for a moment and say to someone, are you sleeping well at night? Do you have a good, wholesome food diet? Are you taking a good 20-minute walk up and down the stairs or down the block at all? Have you phoned your parents or your grandkids lately? And have you done a puzzle where you thought, I've got to solve this thing? Those things mixed together will deal with that midsection that's a little flabby. And I'm speaking figuratively now.
Yes.
If we get the holistic view, we'll discover that, oh my goodness, my emotions are following like a little puppy dog here. Because I did a number of these things, I'm starting to get a little bit of the wow factor in my emotional life. But I wouldn't suggest someone say, well, I'm just going to go after my emotions and try to bump them up.
Mm, that is super advice. And that's what I was saying as well, is happiness is not the goal. Happiness is a byproduct that comes, just like you were saying. So you start doing those other things, and the byproduct is happiness will then enter. And one of the main things that creates that happiness is having a meaningful goal, particularly when that goal is something that's bigger than yourself. So what advice would you give people who think, well, I want to have a meaningful goal, but I don't know what that is?
You know, the word for it is perspective.
Mm.
Sometimes we'll have people write letters for us, and at the bottom of the letter, they'll put per, whether it's an email or whatever kind it is, per, and they'll write their name. In other words, on behalf of, for, or by. So perspective is for or by, spective, spectacles, by your eyes. And so to have perspective, it means, what do you see? And of course, to not see anything is very boring, and you wouldn't want to go through more than a half a day like that. Otherwise, you're going to be counting crickets. And so to see something, you know, rather than say, do you see the full purpose for your life? Maybe that's a little too big of a thing. But can you see that today could be a happy day? Could you see that today could be a day where I could do something meaningful and it could impact somebody else's life? Or maybe even in my own home, I could see myself being a really good guy today. And so it's, how do you see yourself? How do you look at things? And maybe I'll say this, Denise. I'll tell you what, I'd love to be able to grade feelings, because there's light, and then there's mild, and then there's high. The light feeling person is, they wake up in the morning, they look outside, it's dreary, it's raining, and they get a little down, but within 15 minutes, something brings them around. And so those people we're less concerned about. They just need to adjust. They can see things pretty easily. The middle area, though, the person who can have mild emotional issues, is the person who maybe has a natural tendency. They were born this way, they grew up in their family this way, and it's a negativity. And, you know, we talk about maybe seeing things as kind of dark, gloomy, uh, just situations that won't work out. And so for these people, they need more than just a couple of minutes to turn it around. I'd love to address, you know, that group of how can they see something. The high level group that really struggles, and this is where, you know, it can be a chemical imbalance. It can be someone who literally has something hormonal, something physiological. And when it's on this level, where it's affecting your eating, your sleeping, your relationships, that's where you want to give a call to a doctor and talk to somebody who's professional so that they can get to the bottom of it. And so I wanted to clarify that, because if we say to someone on a high level, you know, snap out of it, can't you see the sun today? No, they can't. And so I don't want to push them. But that middle group, what do they see? I love to say things like, well, what do you think about when you have some free time? What do you like to do? What do you like to talk about? Like some guys, I'll try talking to them and I can't get much out of them. And then I mention a hunting trip and they're all over it. Or women, I know that if I talk about shopping and clothes and shoes and purses, I've got you.
And you know what? You're so right about, and I'm really glad you brought up that point about the high level people. And when you had originally mentioned, you were talking about using the analogy of if you needed to, if you wanted to lose weight around the midsection, you need to look at all the different areas, not just spot reduction. And
Yeah.
one of the things I always say is, how do you know you need to reach out? Is if you just really are even unable to get up that motivation to even go for the walk around the block or even make that phone call. So you might have a list of things that are easy to do, but if they feel really impossible to do, definitely that's when you need to get some assistance on that.
Do you know there's an ancient word for hope, and it literally means the root of this word hope is a rope, and it has the picture of strings being wound together that form a rope. And I like, yeah,
That's for
there
my
we are. Yes, yes. You've got the props for me. And so I like to think of hope as not a single strand. And, I'd like it the way that we're speaking now is to be able to bring several strands together, and it actually becomes a strong rope. The worst thing is we're at the end of our rope or we're hanging by a thread. We talk about these kind of things, but to be able to weave together a number of things, and one of them is that perspective, is to bring someone alive from the inside. And so to tap into the inside of the person, going through this virus time has really challenged everybody. And I'd like to say that very few have been unaffected by it. And my experience over the last 1 to 2 weeks is even the strongest that I have known have said, I can see in my eyes I've lost the glimmer. I'm feeling a little worn down. And so it's important to recognize that feeling that way, you're a normal person. And so the purpose of us chatting together is, how can we just give that biggie factor and the wow factor and the spark again of what it is that you like to do, what you can see in your mind's eye, what you can visualize in your heart, because those are your spectacles. That's what you're seeing ahead, and that will get you out of bed in the morning with a little bit of a jump.
And you know what I'd like to add to that too, if right now somebody is at home and they're in a position where they can't even think about what brings them joy anymore, because sometimes we can get to that place where it's not the high level, you don't plan on doing anything, but yet you still can't, you just don't even know what makes you feel joy. One of the things I really suggest to people is read, because
Yeah.
I'm not talking about a romance novel. I'm talking about read a book. I mean, I read The Man's Search for Meaning in the last couple of weeks. And what happens is when you read these books, it helps you to change habitual thinking. So it can kind of take you out of that bowling alley. So our minds have all of these little dendrites and things like that. So we'll keep thinking the same thoughts over and over and over again. And so they say, I don't know how accurate this is, but they do say that 90% of the things you think today are the same things you thought yesterday.
Sure.
And so it goes on and on and on. So in order to help us get out of the rut, sometimes it's important to read something and to help us break free from those patterns of thought, because sometimes it can be difficult. But you're so right. Start with anything you can that you enjoy. And even if you think you don't enjoy going for a walk around the block, like Doug said, you'll be amazed. You do feel as though you've accomplished something. And that little tiny sense of accomplishment plants a seed that I can move on to this and I can move on to this. And it gets bigger and bigger.
I like the ideas that you're giving now, and that is that we can build on our happiness. We can build an emotional strength. Do you know, Denise, that the number one antidote for poor emotions or struggling emotions, the number one thing that a person can do to have an emotional positivity is to have social interaction? They've actually proven this, that social interaction that's meaningful is equal to medication that we might lean on otherwise. But I would say this, don't misunderstand my social interaction and don't get it confused with the social media that people are involved in on the internet. I'm not putting that down. I'm simply saying I can get depressed by going on the social media platforms because a lot of that, I just don't think it's real. I think they touched up their photos before they took their pictures. I
I do sometimes. Lots of times. I like to be honest.
sure, I can't look that way. And they're holding trophies, and I think you must have borrowed that from somebody. I don't remember you winning that. And so social media sometimes just by comparison just depresses me. But social interaction and meaningful, where to me, this is really important, is when we find ourselves interacting with friends, let's be real. If I was struggling right now, Denise, even now, it wouldn't matter with others listening to us. I would say, Denise, you caught me on a bad day. I'm feeling down. And it's I would know you as a safe person, someone who would want to help me, not blow me off. And so the social interaction, the connecting with people who we care about, and we know they care about us. Think about it. It's equal to medicine. When we go for a run or do some activity, we speak of the endorphins. You get
Yes.
the natural chemicals. There are natural things that the body will supply as long as we don't do the spot exercises around the belly. We're not just going after emotions. We want holistic health. And when we look at ourselves that way, you can look inward and say, I want to come alive in my perspective. We look outward. We want to be able to connect with people. Don't let it be too long. One of the greatest things, signs that I've seen over probably thousands of counseling appointments as I've interacted with people is when they're going backwards and moving towards isolation. It's a bad sign. It always is. And so if we can be alert to that if you're pulling back, ask someone to pull you forward, or if you can intentionally move forward closer to somebody, make a call or encourage somebody, phone me, give me a call. I'm struggling right now. That's really important.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more about the importance of the social interaction. Yesterday, it was just yesterday, so this is a great example. I felt a little bit low energy, which was normal. It was the afternoon, so it was kind of like an afternoon slump or something. And then the doorbell rang, and a lady from Lindsay and Janethan's church dropped off a baby present for Lindsay. And so she put it on the porch. I opened the door, and we had this a really great conversation that I think lasted 5 minutes. And when I shut that door, I felt full of energy. It was like somebody had just given me an injection of energy. And it was just a 5 minute meaningful conversation with somebody that I really like. And so my question for you would be, how do you think and how have you seen people can have these connections in the middle of this physical distancing that we're in? So are there ways that you've been seeing that people have been volunteering, or is there something people can do? Is it just a phone call that we need to do? What would you suggest keeping with this physical distancing?
First of all, it's hard.
Yeah.
This is a hard time to do these things that make us feel so good. So I don't want to minimize that, but like you're suggesting, there are some things. I will take our little 3.5 pound dog for a walk, and I go down the middle of the road, and there aren't many people out, but the odd person is walking by, and I say, hi, good to see you. And they say, good to see you. And because we've been so socially deprived, I feel like someone just gave me a huge hug by saying that.
Yeah, you're right. That is
You know,
100% accurate. Yeah, so
and
there are those things we can do. Even just saying hi to neighbors who are out that we haven't said hello to.
yeah, the other is I would really guard my mind when I
Mm.
go through times where I think, okay, this isn't quite normal. I've done a lot of travel over the years, still do. And sometimes I'll get overtired and a little exhausted and flying, and you're not really connected. You're around a lot of people, but not really connecting with people. And so I've tried to learn some things, and you guard your mind. And if someone's in that middle group where you have a natural negative tendency, and maybe it's not as easy as bubbly people like yourself, Denise.
I'm
Uh,
not always bubbly.
it's
Well,
it's
mostly I am, but there are times. Just so
it's
everybody knows, I'm very real as well.
you're very real, but most always, you've got this effervescence. But to guard your mind, where you say, I'm going to listen to music that really energizes me.
Yes.
Um, so you pick your music. You don't let all music come in. I I've personally I've had enough of all these statistics of the virus. So I'm not glued to the television set trying to find out how many passed away, and it breaks my heart, but that's why I can't live on that. And so I will, watch a half an hour when I can find it. Is that just for laugh gags, and they're playing pranks on each other,
It's so
and
fun.
I get a good laugh out of it. It's happy. I'll watch a half hour television program that's good that way. I'll switch to some music that I enjoy. The reading of the book, biographies and autobiographies that have happy endings where I think, wow, I learned something there. My my relationship with God,
Yeah.
I call him the Lord, is really important to me, where I'll take time each day. There are those who talk about meditating and quiet times. Well, I take time each day and I talk to God, and I read my Bible, and I read real good verses. I don't read where it might say maybe in the Old Testament, God will smite you. Uh, wrong day for me to read that. I want to hear about God's love for me, and I fill my mind with that.
Yes, absolutely. And as you know, in 2017, I actually read the whole Bible in 6 months. I'm so glad I did that.
Wow.
It's,
Yeah.
it's so good. It helps to give you context. And I would say that is the best book. That is the book. If you need some reading material, that's the book. But you're right. And guarding your mind. Here's another question I have for you, because I know you've heard this saying as a speaker and as a pastor, that your attitude affects your altitude. So it's your attitude. Is attitude, unlike happiness, which comes in as a byproduct of seeing things, doing things in a certain way, is attitude something you can choose? Like, can you wake up and say, today I'm going to choose the attitude of giving? Or I guess, would giving be an attitude?
Sure it is. And you're talking about, we've never talked about this. When we come on here, we have an idea about what, where the theme, but we don't get into all these details. But now you're on to something, and I love this topic because I believe that attitude is something we need trained in. And unless we're trained in it, we can naturally fall into a very poor attitude. And so in parenting, many of us have had our attitude shaped by our parents, and they told us this is unacceptable. And you might not like it, but this is what we have to do under these conditions. And as we get older, we might think, well, I never had what you had, Doug. I didn't have parents who did that. The beautiful thing about attitude is it begins with a choice. And then we train our emotions, our minds, our thinking, so that we'll approach things with the proper attitude. And we discover that 98% of life is attitude. The other 2% is it just comes along. And so the people who succeed in life always have a great attitude. No person ever does well in sports and gets the big multi-million dollar salaries who has a poor attitude and says, oh, we already lost. We might as well give up now. Who cares? You're better than I am. No, they have a winning attitude. And at the expense of it sounding maybe too positive or corny, the truth is you train your mind to go down that runway expecting success. And you know that it won't be perfect. You know that you won't be in a continuous place like you had opened up with of, I'm always happy. I'm not always happy either. But I can have a good attitude about it, even when I'm struggling, that I'm not going to let this thing get me down. One of my attitudes, by the way, Denise, and I was brought up with it, it began with my parents and then in sports and school and work, is I would never quit. I'd never give up. And it wouldn't be that I bang my head against a wall, something foolish, but just because I never got it right the first time meant that I wanted to grow and I would try again. See, that's attitude. And so in this, going through this, I already know I've been put into abnormal situations with this virus. So my attitude is, I'm going to see if I can get through this the best way possible. That's how I'm approaching it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because I notice a lot of people are trying to get through the day. So that's a popular thing that I'm hearing. I'm just trying to get through the day and through this pandemic. Rather than just getting through the day, what if you get from the day? What if you wake up and say, I'm going to get something from today. I'm going to use today, because today is a gift. We can't just say, I just need to get through today and then tomorrow will be better. Today is such a beautiful gift, even when it's a struggle. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying this is a beautiful gift and it's so simple, because it's not the case. And as Doug knows, and as the people who are related to me that are watching know, I have my ups and I have my downs too.
Sure.
But you can totally, again, with that attitude, just take it and say, no, I'm not here to just get from or get through. I'm here to get from it. And I think that would go a long way in helping people, because sometimes people are also having a double whammy of dealing with the stress by using addictions or substance abuse or overeating. And,
Sure.
and I'm certainly not judging. It's called comfort food for a reason. It actually does some chemical things to our mind. And if you're going to eat a cookie, eat a cookie, but don't beat yourself up over it, is what I say.
Yes.
But if you can start saying, you know what, I'm going to get from this day in the best way possible, and choose that attitude when you wake up, because it is a choice. And you can, and you know what, if it's not natural to you, you can choose it each and every day that you wake up. You say, what attitude am I going to choose today? I'm going to choose this one. And then when you're having a bad day, don't make yourself wrong for it. Don't say, what is wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
Of course you're feeling this way. Of course we have a wide variety of emotions. Our entire world has shifted. So it is okay when things aren't, exactly in your mind perfect. You're going to have really strong days where your attitude is just right on. And then sometimes it's going to be like one of those wheels that's kind of in the opposite direction, where it just takes some effort and some maneuvering. And before you know it, the momentum kicks in, and then it's really easy.
It's interesting for myself. It took some time to figure it out, but when I knew we'd be talking, I just thought through some of the things that I do. But I actually have my day divided up for attitude and my emotions. And that is, I always wake up thinking about something that's good that's coming that day. And I'm not exaggerating. I woke up this morning and I thought, I'm going to be on this webinar with Denise and all my friends, and I'm going to be talking about emotions. And so right away, it excited me. Then I have this other time in the morning, and I call it coffee time. And it can be 8 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock. Usually it's both of those times. And I drink coffee, and it's a comfort for me, and it encourages me, makes me feel good. Then I look forward to lunch. Then I look forward to the middle of the day, because I think I'm in the middle of the day, and I've accomplished a number of these things, and I'm looking outside and I'm thinking the sun is staying up longer now and the grass is getting greener. And believe it or not, I've built my day broken up into pieces, and it doesn't matter just because you divide it up maybe by breakfast, lunch, and supper. It doesn't mean that it's about food. It's just bite size, or these different sections of saying, okay, I've gone through this part. Now I'm going to gear up again, because it's too much to say, well, I'm going to try to be at my best for the whole day. Take off little bite sizes.
I love that. And again, you're talking, one of the things you're mentioning in all of that is routine, and how important that is for us to have
Yes.
something, a structure to our day. And when you have those structures, then you have those things to look forward to. I know, like you, I get so excited when I send out an e-newsletter. I think, ooh, if I set it up the night before and I know it's getting sent out at 6 a.m., I actually wake up thinking, oh, lots of people are going to read that e-newsletter today. And I get so excited. Sometimes I don't hear anything back from anybody. But and then I'll get one little message from somebody that says, thanks so much for the work you're doing to help us stop worrying during the pandemic. And I think, that's all I need. Got some confirmation there. I'm going to keep on going.
Yes, yes. Can I mention one more thing? I don't
Yeah.
know what our time's like, but I would encourage everyone, it's almost another topic, but for what we're talking about, emotions come the most from our social interaction. But even if we were to back up from social interaction, it's to be able to know how we are in ourselves. And, the word for it is our own identity. And so to be able to look in the mirror and see ourselves and feel good about it. And so before I even interact with you or others, I want to be able to see myself and feel good about myself. And that is my faults, my failings, my successes, my half successes, I did my best. And yet in it all, I feel good about myself. And so it really, if we're talking about feelings, we want to come back to ourselves, where even like when I fail, again, I mentioned like I believe in the Lord. And so when I fail, I can get down on myself, and I ask the Lord to forgive me. And I say, I'm kind of troughed out over this. I ask that you would forgive me. And I want to try again, because I want to be a better person. And so I don't let something drive me down. So in my heart, I truly believe that I'm a good person. I truly believe that you're a good person. There's no one that I've met and I thought they just aren't a good person. And so I love helping people find their true identity. And when you have that, you discover it's like this is who I really am. I'm a nice person. I can contribute, for others. Then the emotions come again, and you can be sitting in a chair thinking about, you know what? I'm not just one of 7 billion people. I'm a key player in this thing.
Oh, that is beautiful and so true. I love it. Doug, you are magnificent. It is 7:34 where we've gone 4 minutes over. I wonder if you could maybe, in speaking of identity and attitude and emotions, maybe you could pray for us before we wrap up today.
That'd be perfect. I'd love to do that. Father, we declare today that you have planted inside of each one of us your image and likeness. And we recognize that you are God, but you've put inside of us good. You've actually made us in your image and likeness. And like someone said, you don't make junk. You don't make castaways. You actually make every person so valuable. And so I declare over every person's life today this value. And I speak that you would fill their minds with good thoughts, positive thoughts, possibility thoughts, not only of who they are today, but what they can become in the days ahead. And I declare the goodness, the good things upon each of these people's lives, their homes, all of what they do. And instead of thinking of failure or collapse or calamity, they would see that goodness is with us today and the days ahead. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Yes. Thank you so much, Doug. I really appreciate you being here. And we're getting a lot of amens and thank yous in the chats. And I want to thank each of you for joining us tonight. It's helpful for us that you're here so that we can share with you. And I will be posting this up on YouTube as well, so that if people who are watching have friends that they think, you know what, they need to hear this message as well, then by all means, you're welcome to share this. So thanks again, Doug, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you, Denise. You're the best.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.